Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. I'm Don alongside Ryan. And Ryan, we didn't have an episode last week. So what did you do to keep yourself busy over the past couple of weeks since we last had an episode?
Actually, I had an episode without you. Totally kidding.
Oh,
Yep.
really?
Yeah. So, yep. Don had prior obligations, so he was unable to attend last week. So we took it off. That was our spring break. But welcome back, Don. Did you enjoy? Did you enjoy your week not in Cincinnati?
I did. Was in North Carolina. Having previously lived there, it's always good to get back to the great state of North Carolina. So it was a fun time. But back here now and ready to get on with episode 35.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, just to remind everybody, you can follow us on your favorite audio podcast apps. We're talking about Spotify, Apple Music, and so on and so on and so on. Just search for the Attractions Group podcast. Additionally, if you really want to join the party, you can watch the YouTube video stream and you can see our pretty faces and also our wonderful guests that we have on here. Just search for the Attractions Group podcast on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. By the way, we got a ton of new followers over the past 2 weeks. A lot of people are interested in the show when Don isn't on it. So a lot more followers. So welcome to everybody that's listening for the first time. Make sure you check out the back catalog. We got tons of things. Don's rap album is dropping on his MySpace coming up here soon. And if you want to support the show, by making a small donation, the link to the Buy Me a Coffee link is in the description. So if you click on that link, you can make a small donation to help keep the show going.
Ryan, very excited about our guest on this episode. So why don't you go ahead and introduce them?
So yeah, we've got a unique guest here, an opportunity to have modern thrills kind of merged with a vast history. When you talk about the history of theme parks, this kind of sits in an area of the country where you can't really stray away from it. And no, we're not talking about Cedar Point. We're talking about Coney Island, New York. Specifically, we've got Deno Vourderis from Deno's Wonder Wheel. And he's on the show, and he's going to talk about what they got going on up there. So, Deno, welcome to the show. Thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me, everybody. And Don, I guess I have to add you to my top 8 in MySpace. Is that?
Yes.
That's how that works, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you delete Tom, you can have 8 of your own choices instead of...
I think it's time for Tom to go.
I completely agree.
He hasn't talked to me in like 15 years. He can go.
Same profile picture, though, right?
That's about as long as it's been since anyone's interacted with me on MySpace.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. I'm honored. This is the most fun in the world is for me to talk about theme parks, and to me, it's the greatest job in the world. So always happy to talk about it.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Deno's Wonder Wheel amusement park, it begins its 103rd season in April. Now, think about that, 103 years. There's quite a story about how your family got involved with the park. Tell us about that.
So my grandfather was a hustler. He was a Greek immigrant. He was part of the Merchant Marines, and he jumped off the ship in America to try to sneak in. Got kicked out like 2 or 3 times. Finally, they let him in, gave him a path to citizenship, fought in World War II, and when he got back after earning his citizenship, he opened up pushcart stands. So ironically, he ended up selling hot dogs, not in Coney Island, and while he was selling hot dogs, he ended up meeting my grandmother. He was very good friends with another Greek immigrant who was doing the hot dog stand business. And long story short, the two of them used to go on dates to Coney Island every once in a while. One day he got on his knee, said, "Listen, I don't have enough money to buy you a ring, but one day I'll buy you that Ferris wheel behind me, and you'll have the biggest ring in the world." So it took him another 40 years, but eventually in 1983, we took over the Wonder Wheel.
Yeah, that's an incredible story, and I've actually heard that before. So what a great like American success story of immigrants coming in and now iconic business owners. If my girlfriend and I ever get engaged, I'm gonna spare them the money on the ring, and I'm just gonna point to something large and say, "I'll buy you that later." Did it work out well for your?
Yeah, I don't think he really thought he was going to get the opportunity to do it. He was probably trying to like hustle his way through not buying a ring, and then the opportunity presented itself, and she was like,
Yeah, so she said yes. That's the important part. So the Wonder Wheel itself is the star attraction for your park, but there's a lot more to it, and we're absolutely going to get into all that. But what makes the wheel so unique?
So the wheel is unique in that it's not just a typical Ferris wheel. So the gondolas, there's 24 gondolas, and 8 of them are stationary. So that's what we call them, stationary, just like a regular Ferris wheel. But then there's 16 that swing like a roller coaster. Although our CDB doesn't say it's a roller coaster, but I think there's we could say that it's 16 credits. I'm not sure because each track is hand built and different. But that's not even what makes it special. What makes it special isn't, the sum of its parts. It's greater than that. It's the history behind it. It started construction in 1918. It was a pandemic in 1918. So it, just like our pandemic, everything stopped. Aside from a pandemic, there was also a steel strike. So it was just layer after layer of reasons why they should not build this Ferris wheel. But they found a way around it. During the steel strike, they ended up making all the steel workers part owners of the Wonder Wheel. And that's how they got around it. They said, look, they own the wheel. They're here working on their business. And they all became shareholders. So they were able to get the steel workers going. It was built with social distancing in mind back in 1918, 1919 for the pandemic. And I think as the 1920s, the roaring 20s came in, it was a huge part of Coney Island's resurgence, New York City's resurgence. And for the past 100 years, it's just been that for people. People take their girlfriends there. It's their first date. It's where they start their families, where they start their new lives together. February 14th isn't just Valentine's Day, it's National Ferris Wheel Day. So it's the most romantic ride in the world. And I think it gives people hope. It's just an iconic symbol of there's light at the end of this dark tunnel and there's better days ahead. That's what it meant in 1918, and that's what it meant in 2020.
Yeah, I would say if any ride embodies America, it's the Ferris wheel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Deno, the Ferris wheel dates back to 1920. You have a perfect safety record on that attraction. What do you attribute that to? Why has it gone that many years and not one thing has happened?
Well, I think it was built right. The original owners and designers did a great job. And aside from that, it's always been a family-owned business. So I think there's some pride involved when it's your family's business. It's not something that you say, I'll get to tomorrow. It's a member of your family. Like I look at that wheel. When I got married, I said, honey, I love you. Meet the other woman in the relationship, But there's pride there. I think another thing that we do and the owners before did is, you have good years and bad years. Good years, you can think about expansion. Bad years, you have to tighten up. The one part of the budget that never gets cut is the maintenance budget and the safety. That's something that we always either have enough money to do or find a way to find the money to get it done. And, we're all in the safety business more than anything else. We have to make sure that we keep people safe. It's the one thing that keeps me awake at night is to make sure that everything gets done. And with my family personally, we leave our egos on the side. As me and my father are the mechanics. But we know that we're human, so we make sure that we have other people double, triple, quadruple check us. We were talking about inspectors. A lot of parks hate when the inspectors come because they're, find stuff. We love when the inspectors come. We love to have an extra pair of eyes, and we hire third and fourth party inspectors to come triple check us too. So, I have kids, and every time somebody rides a ride, I see that person as one of my kids. And I want to make sure that that's safe. And my family wants to make sure that it's safe enough for our own family, because the people who come to our park become our family. That's how I think every park should think about it.
Well, absolutely. And over 100 years without a major incident, that's impressive no matter what angle you take at it. But with that being said, we are talking about a wheel that is over 100 years old. And anything that's old poses certain challenges. What are some of the unique challenges that you, from a maintenance standpoint and operation standpoint, things like that, face when it comes to operating a wheel that's so old?
The Wonder Wheel doesn't have a manufacturer. It was a one-of-a-kind thing. So whenever we need parts, we have to make those parts. So we have a small kiddie park too that's on a platform. And underground in that kiddie park is our shop. In that shop, we have a small little machine shop. We have, CNC machines, 3D printers, whatever we need to make stuff. But we have lathes for the Wonder Wheel in particular that came with the Wonder Wheel because we have to manufacture the parts on site or have them designed, copied by a machine shop. So you know how with roller coaster wheels, you know, you have to change anyone who's Kings Island, Cedar Point, you have to change those wheels every 5-10 years. We still have the original wheels on the Wonder Wheel. They are still original. We get them recoated with plastic now, polyurethane. But originally, here's another fun fact: they were steel on steel. When my family took over is when we added the polyurethane wheels. But now the polyurethane just gets redone every so often. But the wheels are still original from 1920. And we have like these main bearings in the center of the Wonder Wheel. One of the huge challenges that always makes us a little nervous is we have to lift the entire Ferris wheel up to change those bearings underneath. And believe it or not, we do it with a small little jack about this big. We just stick it under there and jack the wheel up.
So for those of you who are listening on the audio podcast, it's not a very big jack, just to make sure that nobody's impeded with this experience.
Maybe 3 times the size of a car jack, I'd say.
And the whole wheel goes up, the whole structure.
And the whole wheel. We lift one side at a time, so we kind of lean it on its side.
That's incredible.
And then we change one side of wheels, and then we do the same on the other side. But, you know, it's nerve-wracking because you don't have a manufacturer behind you. You're the manufacturer now, so it's your call. You don't have anybody else to lean on.
Absolutely.
Right now, the Wonder Wheel, obviously the star attraction there. But you recently added a Vekoma family roller coaster. Tell us about the decision to add this particular model, and what was it like working with Vekoma on this deal?
Vekoma was great. I'm really happy we went with Vekoma because no one in my family had experience with a modern roller coaster. You know, we have the ancient stuff. You know, a lot of our rides are from the 1940s, or the Wonder Wheel's 1920s. Our Dark Ride is from 1955. So this was a modern thing, and we talked to everybody. We talked to all the mechanics that we knew, from Hershey Park to Dollywood to Six Flags, and we heard a lot of good things on the maintenance side with Vekoma. And me being a maintenance guy, I kind of wanted something simple or at least, you know, accessible and easy to fix that wouldn't have too much downtime. And Vekoma always came up pretty high on the mechanics ideas of what worked. And then I went to the authorities. I went to the roller coaster subreddit, and I remember posting a query of, hey, if you had 265 feet and your major attraction was a Ferris wheel with swinging cars, wink, what would you put? And that just exploded on Reddit and gave me a short list, and Vekoma was at the top of it. So thanks, enthusiasts. You helped us out on that one.
Well, I mean, since it was from the r/roller coaster subreddit, I'm guessing you had to weed through 300 posts of Giga Coaster and, you know, Hyper, Flying Coaster, Launch Coaster, stuff like that. But
so I'll tell you guys, but I would have done it in a heartbeat. I mean, if I could have brought in the first modern Vekoma, new generation, like Lek Bermuda Blitz style, I remember getting on my hands and knees at IAAPA, which is the trade show that we all go to, and saying, can you guys fit this in our park? And they're like, we can't. The most exciting thing we can put in that small space is a suspended family coaster. I was like, okay. Because we went to Family Boomerang. We were thinking about putting one of those in. We talked to RMC for a while, but just there were certain restrictions on the site that what made the most sense was the Vekoma. And that's kind of why we went that route.
Yeah, it's the new. So I'm guessing it's similar to the suspended family coaster at Dollywood, since you spoke to them.
Exactly.
You know, full disclosure, I haven't been up there.
It was great.
But yeah, that's a great ride. So I assume that you're happy with the product that came out ultimately, correct?
Extremely happy. I mean, we've been open 2 years. We have 0 downtime. So, you know, the Wonder Wheel has 103 years without any downtime. So it's got a long way to go to catch up to that. But so far, so good.
That's pretty cool. Now, you mentioned that there were some, you know, you spoke to a bunch of different manufacturers, and, you know, you talked to Vekoma about, you know, the limitations in the land and stuff like that. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on the challenges that were associated with adding a modern roller coaster? You know, besides land and stuff like that, you often hear about like the decision-making process behind the actual roller coasters, but especially for your unique situation, what can you tell us about, you know, the most difficult part of doing this particular process?
You know, it's building a roller coaster isn't like building a building. So you know, you get a contractor and they don't understand the whole concept behind it. So that was one thing. Another thing was in New York City. New York City is tricky. It's hard to get your permits through, especially when you're a small family business. When you're a multi-whatever corporation, you have resources, you have lawyers, you have people who know how to get things pushed through. You know, we have a lot of goodwill, we have a lot of friends, but we don't have the resources to just expedite certain things. And that was, and the knowledge too. I'll admit it. I didn't exactly know what I was getting into with all these permits. I remember our permit kept getting kicked back because we applied for a New York City buildings permit. That's what it's called, to build anything in New York, from a roller coaster to a building. And one of the objections that they came back with was, where's your elevator? You're at 68 feet high or 66 feet high. You need an elevator. Anything over 20 feet in New York City needs an elevator. We're like, well, there's a lift hill.
Yeah. That's the same thing.
Because it's a roller coaster. Then they kicked it back. You don't have insulation in your building. In New York City, you need a certain amount of insulation. So we're like, no, just read past the first line. It's a roller coaster. So that delayed us like several months. So the permitting was difficult. Dealing with a contractor who thought they knew more than the ride manufacturer on how to assemble the anchor bolts and put all that together wasn't fun. But, you know, we stuck with it. Vekoma held our hand, and really, I mean, I can't say enough great things about Vekoma. They helped me a lot. I don't think I would have been able to do it without them. And Ride Entertainment, for any parks that are listening to, did a great job with our assembly. They had a lot of, you know, working on a small New York City street without any place to lay down the track. It was a jigsaw puzzle. Like, we had, instead of the lines in your parking lot, they were roller coaster track lines. Like, the roller coasters were between, don't hit the track when you pull in.
Yeah, we love Ride Entertainment. So, many friends there.
They're excellent. They're excellent. They really, the reason we were, you know, despite, I'd say we had 4 months of delays, we were only delayed about 3 weeks. And they were a big part of why. They really, you know, did well by us.
Let's talk about the name, Phoenix. Why was that chosen?
Oh, for Knoebels. No. So I said it at the ACE events. I love the original Phoenix, and that is the best roller coaster, I think. Top 3 in the world. Definitely top Woody in the world, but and the Cyclone. I'm going to say they both are. But we picked Phoenix because we were building during the pandemic. Everything was shut down. New York City was, just like the rest of the world, in dire straits. We weren't sure we were going to continue with construction. We weren't sure we were going to stay in business, because during the pandemic, we were shut down the whole year. We were shut down a total of, I think, 18 or 19 months, because we finished our season October 31st. The pandemic hit like 2 weeks before we were supposed to open. We missed that whole year, and then the city wouldn't let us open until the spring. So we missed about 19 straight months, during which I think only 2 coasters were being built, Velocicoaster and us. So we weren't sure what to do. You know, everybody else stopped construction, but, you know, we sat down, we thought about it. We felt it was the right thing to do. You know, betting on New York City, betting on the amusement industry always seemed right. You know, my grandfather had the same decision to make with the Wonder Wheel. It was the 1980s. Gangs were rampant in New York City. There was violence. They didn't have money. They had to borrow from everybody. They had just finally got the kiddie section. And it didn't make any sense to reinvest into a place that may or may not make it. So I kind of drew inspiration from his story and said, you know what, he bet on Coney Island, he bet on New York City, it paid out for my family now. Let's do the same thing for the next generation. So, you know, I felt like Phoenix was a great symbol for rebirth. And, you know, the one silver lining that I thought we'd find in this pandemic was when we all came back, you know, here was this COVID, this common enemy that we all had that can finally unify all of us. Didn't quite work out that way. But I think in this rebirth, we need the amusement parks and parks in general more than we've ever needed them before, because I thought we were going to all find a way to come together. Didn't quite happen that way. But I think the more time we spend away from these things and out in the open, because, you know, the problem with these things is, you can have some bat crazy idea. Somebody will agree with you on this.
Echo chamber.
You can be as crazy as you want, and you'll find a soundboard there. You'll find somebody who'll agree with you. I think when you're out in public, it humanizes each other. It humanizes us more. We realize that we don't really hate each other. We just don't always understand each other. And when you look at the parks, you don't see that division. You just see people who are out to make a good time with their friends or their family. And that's the rebirth that I was hoping we could bring about by this construction project. And we were one of the first, if not the first, construction project in New York City after the reopening.
Yeah, I tell you what, I wish we had all the time in the world so we could talk about, the Wonder Wheel and its contribution to Coney
No.
Island from what it was, because if you even look at like the history of Disneyland, with Disneyland, they thought he was crazy. They thought Walt Disney was crazy because theme parks are gross, they're dirty. That's where drug dealers hang out. You couldn't fathom that now at the vast majority of parks, but you're right. I mean, Coney Island was no exception to that whatsoever.
No,
but
we've gotten a lot better.
Oh yeah, and then it doesn't have that reputation, if anything, So yeah, that's really cool. But the other thing is I'm worried that every time you put in a major ride, there's going to be a pandemic. So please take that into consideration because between the Wonder Wheel and your Vekoma ride. So just warn us ahead of time if you're going to put in that RMC or whatever. But,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, please.
Well, with that being
COVID-24.
Yeah,
no,
oh gosh.
no more.
No,
I think we're good for a while.
Way too
I think
soon.
we're good for a while.
Hey, so
soon.
speaking of Coney Island as a whole, you're not very far from different attractions like Luna Park. Are there from a marketing or drawing people or attendance or from that standpoint, what are the challenges that you face with that?
Well, I think Coney Island's always been about the different businesses finding a way to work together. We have the Alliance for Coney Island. We all work together for the greater good. That's one of the things that always made Coney Island great. It's we have different businesses, different diversities. We have immigrants. We have long-established businesses, and we all get together in a room and figure out how we can make Coney Island better for everybody. And Luna Park came in and they injected new life into Coney Island. We love having them next door. Everyone says, "Oh, they're your rivals. They're your this." They don't have to be. You don't have to have a rival. The best way to not have a rival is to make them your friend. So we're friends with Luna Park. We try as much as we can to work with them, and I hope we can work even closer together in the future.
That's really cool.
Yeah, you're what, about 3-minute walk, maybe, I think?
Across the street.
Yeah, across the street.
Right across the street. Actually, they're around us, because we were first, and then the city purchased all the land except for us, and then they leased it to Luna Park. So it just so happens that we're right in the middle of two of their parks. So it's a little confusing, but
you sound surrounded.
We make it work. We are surrounded. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it seems to work for all parties there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That your park, it's been in several cameos there in TV and movies. Talk about that a little bit, but also not just that those have been filmed there, but there is some challenges when your park's open and you've got this TV crew going around.
Yeah, so we always try to film when the park's not open, like during the off season or the shoulder season, where we're only open on weekends. We have the film crews come in like Monday through Thursday. And I love it. I love film and TV. I went to school for acting. That's where I met my wife. We were in a show together off Broadway. But so it's always cool to see, like, if I pursued that path, like how that would have went, and I get to see all the actors getting ready and the behind the scenes, how the directors shoot a scene. And sometimes they don't realize like certain things, like if they're on the Wonder Wheel and they're like, okay, we're going to shoot it in this car. I'm like, no, you can't. There's a different number there. You're going to have a continuity issue. This is the Wonder Wheel. Every car cage looks a little different, so it's always fun to like have input in the movie. But yeah, I love movies and TV. And during the pandemic, didn't we all like survive on that stuff? So having being a part of that industry, which I think is like one of the greatest exports our country does, is our movies and our entertainment. I'm proud of it. It's like seeing your kid on TV. It's like, hey, there we are. We're right there. I'm so proud of him. Her.
What are some of the places where we could see the park and movies? Like, what are some of the ones that come to mind?
Oh man, can I talk about the ones that are coming? I can't talk about one of them, but that's going to be super exciting. And yeah, I think it's out of the bag. There was a John Krasinski film that's coming out in the next 2 years that I think is going to have some Oscar buzz. And they filmed a very pivotal scene. I kind of know the ending now, but that's another thing that's not always so much fun is like you're like, oh man, now I know how this is going to end, because they always film like something important on the Wonder Wheel. Like it's always like a revelation of some sort. It's a revolution and a revelation. But
there's got to be a word for that.
Yeah, I guess it's a Coney ending, but it's going to be a cool movie. I mean, I know how it ends. I'm not going to tell anybody, but it looks cool.
Well, what are some of the movies that are out now that people can check out? I mean, obviously,
well, The Warriors. The Warriors is a cult classic. It's always one of my favorite movies, and the history behind the filming of that is
yeah, I remember The Warriors.
And that's what Coney Island looked like. I mean, they had to be careful. When they were filming that, it was before my time, but it was they had to have an understanding with the real gangs and not tread on their territory. Because they were in gang outfits. So it was like, wait a second, we got to make sure we all get along here. But the Warriors was there. Annie Hall was there. We won't talk about the more recent Woody Allen movie called Wonder Wheel. I've never heard of that. That was not my favorite movie. If anybody saw that, you're not missing anything. But they're not all winners, people. But it's always great to see. And one of the reasons why people film at the Wonder Wheel is because it's 100 years old. So if you're filming a period piece, I mean, there's no better place. Hasn't changed. We have one of the first neon signs ever made, and I think one of the oldest neon signs in New York City is our Wonder Wheel sign at the top.
So completely going off script here, this just kind of came to mind. So if they're filming, because I didn't think about that, how they might film a period piece there, but you do have like a brand spanking new Vekoma coaster right next to it. Do they just film around that, or is that like their problem, or can you help them with that, or what?
So a lot of times what they did was it the Krasinski film? It was one of the films that they did 2 years ago, is they set up a laser scanner and they scan the whole area, and in post-production they'll remove it. And they'll just like pop it out. We filmed Men in Black 3, and at the time we had solar panels on each gondola. They were solar powered. And Men in Black had to, because they went back in time, they digitally removed the solar panels from each gondola.
That was half the budget right there.
Yeah, back then maybe, but now it's like something you can do in your basement.
Oh, now I can do it on my computer that it's sitting in front of me pretty easily. But back to the real world though. So you guys still operate on like a pay per ride kind of basis, wristbands, that sort of thing. A lot of American parks have gone to a pay one price to get in kind of admission. You guys are free admission, you pay for the rides. Why do you think that works for your park in particular, as opposed to the model that most other parks use now?
I think because we're one of many parks in the area, it's more fair to people than having to charge admission and then they're stuck there and then they can't go to like our neighbors and we're smaller than Luna Park, so Luna Park can kind of get away with the wristband. I wish we could do a wristband. Boy, wouldn't it be a great idea if you can get a park hopper? But we'll talk about that down the road. But I think if we were the only game in town, I think we would still want to keep our gates open to make it accessible, because not everybody wants to go to an amusement park. Some people want to go to the beach. Maybe they'll get on the Wonder Wheel, but they don't want to pay $60, $70, $100 to get into a park. Maybe they'll just want to get on one or two rides and then leave and just enjoy the boardwalk or go to the bar next door or do something else to one of the smaller mom and pops down the street. So we're a little bit of a different model, because we're more of like you go to Times Square and there's many different businesses, not just Times Square. People think Coney Island's one amusement park, but there's us, there's Luna, and then there's some independent operators. And we always give refunds. So sometimes people will buy one of our fun cards and they'll go to Luna and then they find out that it's not all Coney Island isn't one park. So we always give a refund for that. If you went on a couple of rides, we won't give you that money back, but we'll give you the balance back, because it is confusing. We put signs everywhere, but it's still very confusing. So, that's just how we're a little different. You don't often get an area of land that has multiple amusement parks on it. I mean, you do in Jersey, and I think they're very similar as well. I think they're still on the pay-per-ride free admission system.
Yeah, it's funny that it's just to clarify, because I didn't even know this until, I've been involved in the coaster and the park community for 25 years now, but it was probably 10 years ago that I realized that Coney Island is several parks. And just to give you a long story short, here in the Cincinnati area, there's a park called Coney Island. Now,
Yep.
Coney Island, I see you're familiar with it. Coney Island
Of course.
is
Let's Coney stick together.
right. Stick together. So Coney Island was named after Coney Island in New York, where you have your wheel, and it was the Coney Island of the West, which over time was shortened to Coney Island. And
Right.
Online people are like, oh, they could never do that today because they would get sued. No, they wouldn't. It's like saying like the New York of the West. Like New York's not going to sue you
Right.
for that.
Hey, New York was from York. It's New York.
Right.
So,
Right, but it's the remake of York.
right, exactly. So it would be
Yeah.
New Coney Island, I guess.
Yeah, Dino, your model, Ryan brought up Cincinnati's Coney Island, and that was my introduction to the industry. And I, remember where you just got the ride tickets and things. You could walk around; it was free, to get into the park. But so for me, I think you would lose part of that old school charm that you have if you did move away from that. So, I like the fact that history, that tradition, all those kind of things, remain intact. It's still being run the same way that it always has.
Yeah, I agree. It was hard for us to go digital on the cards. Like the paper ticket was just like we didn't want to let that go, but we ended up having to eventually get like a digital card and stuff. But yeah, I do miss the paper tickets, and we do sell them once in a while. Like they're still good. I mean, if you bought a paper ticket 30 years ago at our park, we'll still take it. They're still out there.
Yeah, they're probably appreciated in value with how inflation's been. Because listen,
Yeah,
if
like
a
when people
$30
get it,
ticket
like,
was
wait,
good for
don't
5
throw that
rides.
out. I'll save it. Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. It's like, oh God.
Yeah,
I know.
awesome. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's circle back to the pandemic in 2020. That was the lone year that you did not operate. Um, how'd you overcome that unique year, and how has the business maybe changed? What have you seen a little different, coming out of that?
That was tough. Not opening. We always thought positively, but in the back of our minds, we thought this might be it. Well, we don't know how bad this is going to get. We don't know when we're going to open. I mean, we had put the park together and taken it apart and put it together several times because government told us we were going to open, and then we weren't going to open, and back and forth. And I mean, it's like a bad dream now. It feels like. I mean, we're lucky. Everybody in our family made it through okay. For the most part, we've got some long haulers in the family, just like everybody else's family who's got dealing with the effects of long COVID. But for the most part, we're doing okay. So we'll take that blessing. But as for a business standpoint, it was tough. I mean, I think half of New York City restaurants closed down during the pandemic, and the amusement industry got hit even harder because we didn't open. So you kind of stick together as a family. One of the positives for me was it was the first summer I was home. Me and the kids and my wife, we cooked every night. It was great for that respect. But you just have to have hope. You have to have hope that, you do what you can with what you got. And we made sure that when we were able to open, that we could do it safely, that we can do it bringing people together, and that we could do it with a smile, because not too many people were smiling in 2020. So we said, if we're given the opportunity, we're just going to make sure that we appreciate it. We appreciate the privilege that we have and try to do the most good with that privilege.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just and I think I speak for everybody, and we're with you. I don't think many people were hit harder than business owners, small business owners specifically, because oftentimes there's no net. It's just, oh, you're not opening, well, there's no income. So that's
Yeah, we kind of fell between different programs. Like we weren't really a restaurant, so we couldn't get that money. We weren't a theater, so we couldn't get that money. But we ended up being okay. So the people hopefully that needed it more got it.
Yeah. So Dino, let me ask you this. So over 100 years of this wheel, what do the next 100 years look like?
A lot of welding. No.
I didn't mean just for the wheel.
It all depends. If the opportunity presents itself to add to the park, we will sit down as a family and we'll discuss if it's the right time to do that. Right now, there's a lot of talk of casinos going into Coney Island. I have mixed feelings, but that's, again, You know, it's funny. People ask me, what do you think about the casinos? I'm like, it's not my decision. You know, I'm a business owner. Yes, my family and I are there, but we serve at the leisure of at the pleasure of the community. So whatever the community decides, we're going to hopefully still be a part of their vision. And I always said we're temporary stewards of what I consider the people's playground, one of the greatest places on earth. And we have appreciated every second that we're there. And as long as New York City wants the Vourderis family there, we will be there. One day that might not be true, but I just hope that we're there for as long as we can be. And when our time is up, that somebody else does come in, understands the responsibility and the privilege that they have being in such an iconic place. So we'll see. You know, I have kids, my brothers have kids, my cousins have kids. We're ready to go for another generation. So if y'all have us, we'll be there.
Succession plan in place.
There you go.
Awesome. So, Deno, I mean, just to, you know, make sure that we go for full circle. Where can we find you on the web, in your social media, and so on? Like, where can people find out more about Deno's Wonder Wheel?
So you can go to denoswonderwheel.com, DENOS. You can thank Ellis Island for that one. But or my grandfather, who knows, but it's DENO. And you know, you can just find it, just type in Wonder Wheel on we have a Twitter and Instagram, whatever those kids are using now. But we're all over on that.
Awesome. And we will link you in the description. So awesome. So Don, do you have any final thoughts for Deno?
No, it's been great having you on the podcast. I think that for our listeners, you know, if you're going to be in New York City, you definitely have to check out Deno's Wonder Wheel. It's you know, it's a classic, you know, and it's going to, you know, be a throwback to, you know, past 100 years. I mean, you see all that history there, and you know, so it's a can't miss opportunity for you if you're going to be visiting New York.
It's a great place. One of the things I love most about Coney Island, it's a place where we don't just tolerate each other's diversity. We embrace it and we grow from it. That's what Coney Island's always been. It's always been that hope for a better tomorrow. So if you're ever there, take a deep breath and kind of feel all that when you're there.
All right. Well, Deno, we have a segment coming up. We'd like you to stick around if you want to chime in. It's called the Pick Six, where we talk about some different things going on around the industry. So feel free to chime in. So now it's time for the Pick Six.
Pick six time. Okay. All right. Oh, the first one's me. Okay. So Tweetsy Railroad, North Carolina, introducing 3 new rides in 2023: a mini swing, spring ride drop tower, and a family spinning coaster. They mentioned that it will not be ready for opening on April 8th, but it will be ready sometime in the late spring, early summer. The spinning coaster is an SBF Visa spinning coaster. So, Deno, have you ever been on one of those SBF spinning coasters? You went to IAPA, so you probably rode it there, right?
Yep, of course. Not the hamster wheel, though. Not going to find me on that hamster wheel. Actually, wait. I think I did do the hamster wheel.
You did do that one, okay.
Yeah, I don't remember it. It knocked out my short-term memory. But yeah, they're fun. Actually, we've thought about it, you know, if we had the room.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever been to Tweetsy's Railroad?
No, but I've heard about it. I mean, I listened to all the news blasts, and it sounds like an awesome place.
It is. It's not, you know, it's not a place you're going to spend all day at, but it's definitely, you know, worth a stop if you're in North Carolina. If you're a train enthusiast, you know, opportunity to get your credit there if you keep track of how many different steam trains you've been on in the amusement industry. But you know, a lot of fun, and it's you know, great to see that they're expanding and adding 3 new rides.
Awesome.
I
mean, didn't Silver Dollar City, Dollywood start out with just a train?
Yeah, that was kind of the origin of it.
Yeah.
So the next topic is Disney cast members. They welcome the return of the Happily Ever After nighttime spectacular that they do there. So I think, you know, they're adding this year projections to it. You know, rave reviews before. So I'm excited to see it back. What about, have you seen it before, Deno?
It's been a while. I actually went to Disney with my family last year, but we didn't see that. But the projection mapping on Main Street is incredible. So I mean, Disney knows how to do a show. So
What about you, Ryan?
So I haven't seen that show. I've saw Happily Ever After or not Happily Ever After. That's this one. I saw Wishes. That was the last one I saw. No, I've been there since Wishes, but I haven't been to see the night show at Magic Kingdom since Happily Ever After. But huge fan of projection mapping, and as Deno mentioned, it's only Disney can do it as well as they do it. So glad to hear that the show's coming back. It's going to be better than ever. They're having cast previews, and of course, the cast is putting it all over social media, which it's not really a spoiler when they're bringing the show back. But mazel tov to them. I mean, I'm glad that they're doing things like this instead of putting in things that aren't as good, and then people are told to stick with them. That's the direction they're going. I'm so happy about that.
Yeah, it's an exciting time if you're a Disney fan.
Yeah. Oh gosh, we're talking about Buc-ee's again. So Buc-ee's is looking to expand into Virginia. Deno, do you know about Buc-ee's?
You got me on that one. I don't know Buc-ee's.
Don, explain it.
You have to. It is well, it's like the world's largest gas station in a way, but the food.
Oh, okay.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So you got like 120 pumps, to fill up your tank. Cleanest restrooms you're going to find anywhere. You could almost eat off the floor there. They've got the breakfast food's great. They're known for their briskets, their melts, their pulled pork. It's all just really, it's in the merchandise. So it's almost like its own, almost like a mini amusement park without rides. When you go in there, it's it's addictive when you walk into it. But they're kind of expanding all over. Started out in Texas. They have them now in Tennessee, and they're going to open another one in a Memorial Day weekend range down there. But now Virginia, not too far from Busch Gardens and King's Dominion. So I'm excited about that when I make trips to those parks. I like the way they're expanding, so pretty soon they'll be coast to coast.
Then they always try to get you to buy their merchandise, but I never do. Don, show it off. Okay.
Oh man,
Buc-ee's is not a sponsor of this program, but we like to pretend that they are.
Beatles mug.
Wait, I've never seen that Buc-ee's mug before.
No, you have to.
I'm definitely gonna go.
If you're like in Tennessee, you'll find one within an hour or two now. Wherever if you're going to be at Dollywood, it's right off the exit. The main exit to get into Pigeon Forge. So you definitely have to check it out. You'll walk in to just maybe take a quick bathroom break, get something to eat, and next thing you know, you bought camping gear and everything.
Yeah, that's like me in Walmart.
They have seasonal
or Home Depot. If I go to Home Depot for electrical tape, I come out with like a new bathroom.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You come out with a consultation plan. They have like seasonal merchandise and stuff that rotates every couple weeks. So like literally every time you swing by one, you can like stop and get the new merchandise. It's like the merch runs at Disney. It really is. But you got to try it. The food really is excellent.
No, you said pulled pork and I got hungry. So.
Well, the melt is the one that we learned the hard way that the melt is the one that you need to go for. They're known for their pulled pork, they're known for their brisket, but the melt is king.
That's the best sandwich.
It really is.
Really? Good
but their breakfast burritos and things like that, I mean, it's good. I mean, it's going to be better than any of the fast food places you're going to find.
You're going to see me pull up with an electric car just to eat. You guys find a way to fill it up. I'm going to go get the pulled pork.
That's right.
No, well, I mean, they don't have like greasers filling up cars. It's not like a 1950s gas station, but they do literally. So, I mean, obviously, anyone who's familiar with Walmart, which I can't imagine anyone who's not, but the old Walmarts from the 80s, it was about that size. So it's not like a super Walmart, but it's very, very large. And then just pumps as far as the eye can see. Wow. So you never have to wait. And then, as Don mentioned, they pride themselves in the restrooms, and they're so clean and they're so big, and
that's impressive.
Yeah. So I don't know why anyone would buy an electric car when it prevents you from going to Buc-ee's. I'm just saying.
I didn't know.
You can still do the car wash that they have, and that's almost like the length of a football field. That's an experience in itself, is just doing the car wash.
Now I know what to do. Now I know where I'm going.
No,
In
I
Tennessee.
haven't done the car wash, but I imagine it's like that scene from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when they're on that vehicle and they're all getting sprayed with the foam and stuff,
Yes.
and then they go past that like pillar and then they're all dry again. Oh my
Yeah,
word.
so yeah, mark it down, make it a point
Magic.
somewhere this summer. You have to hit a Buc-ee's.
Okay, deal.
All right, next we have Dollywood, known
Oh.
for the Dollywood Express train. They have named their first female train engineer. Her name's Julia Collins, and I think this is a pretty notable um, story. As long as that train has been around, and I was just excited to read that story and looking forward to when I go to Dollywood again to add it to my bucket list to try to meet Julia.
They always do things right in Dollywood, don't they?
Dollywood is infallible like the Pope.
Yeah.
No, I mean, good for them. I don't necessarily think that, at least in the past maybe 20 years or so, that anyone's ever told a woman they can't be a train engineer, but definitely it was one of those things that was very male dominated. So, Julia is her name. So good for
Yeah,
Julia.
Julia Collins.
Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, to do that job, and especially theirs, it's a lot of work involved to have that ready to go every day. You just don't show up in the morning and fired it up
Boom.
and let's
Yeah.
put our first guest on. I mean, it is a lot of work involved, and I think to work on any kind of a steam train at any of the amusement theme parks around the country, I mean, you have to be passionate about it to be able to do that. If it's 100 degrees, 80 degrees, whatever it may be outside, I mean, it's hot in that cabin and things. So, you have to be passionate about it. You have to be very knowledgeable. But I found that to be a great story.
Good for her.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, I'm guessing that both, I know Don has. Dino, have you ridden the Dollywood train? Have you been out there?
Not yet.
Oh,
Not yet. I was out there once, but we were only there to look at the coaster, and then we did that and did lightning
You
rod.
could have
of
gotten a
course, and then
great
headed
view
out.
of the coaster from the train. I'm just saying. It goes right around
I
Wildwood
know.
Grove.
Well, we were there for like 3-4 hours, but I'm definitely doing it.
Yeah, it's
Definitely.
every hour on the hour. And this is completely going off on a tangent, but the thing that kind of strikes me when Don mentioned like you just can't turn it on and go is that train goes to the top of a mountain. Like I don't think
Mhm.
trains in general are designed to do that sort of thing. So the maintenance on that's got to be incredible, and the fact that it doesn't really have downtime, I think is impressive. I'm not really a train engineer, so maybe it's easier than I think. But in my little Ryan imagination, I think it's really cool that they're able to operate such a thing, especially since the trains are like decades old, 60 years old
Mhm.
or whatever, like old Confederate train. I don't know. They tell the story on the train, but I'm usually like, looking at the mountains and looking at the Vekoma coaster from the good view that Dino didn't get. And, you know, awesome. All right. Well, recently there was an article that came out from IAPA that talked about how the decision is made to either refurbish or remove an attraction. Now, this one kind of hits home because they talked a lot about like Vortex at Kings Island, which was recently removed a few years ago. And basically, there was nothing like earth shattering with this, but I'm glad the article was written because it seems like with the roller coaster, much like anything else, um, it comes down to it has the end of the service life and it becomes not profitable to try to spend the money to fix it, you know? Um, so let me ask you, Don, first, since you're firsthand, like, what were your thoughts on the article primarily? Do you have any commentary on it or anything like that?
No, I mean, I think it pretty much touched on, what's been explained by parks throughout the country whenever they do retire an attraction. Oftentimes it's reached the end of its service life, or, you're a little bit landlocked and you need to add something new. So you kind of, look at some other factors, maybe the maintenance cost or what's the ridership, is it decline, those kind of things. So it really, kind of, was a lot about all the different things that you've heard for years about why rides removed. I thought the interesting part about the article was how sometimes when a ride's removed, there are fans of the ride that would like to have a piece of memorabilia from it, and parks making those pieces, whether it's a block of wood or a piece of steel, making that available for fans of the ride to purchase.
Yeah, we saw another article about how there's a market for that now where, and I always make the joke, and it's not completely untrue that here's a $200 piece of scrap of steel for that's an inch wide, that, on the open market's worth about $8. But yeah, I mean that kind of like physical connection is a real thing. And it seems like more and more parks are realizing that. Dino, do you have any experience having to remove a ride, or have you just added them over the past 100 years?
We had a kitty whip, Mangle's kitty whip, and we did switch it out for a Zamperla Speedway. So I do miss the kitty whip, but a lot of times it just has to deal with not being able to get parts, reach the end of its service life. And, some parks, to their credit, like Knoebels, find a way to keep them going.
Yeah. I mean, a good example of that is all the parks that have the monster rides by the Irely Aircraft Company. Is that the name of it? Like,
Yep.
how do you keep those going? That company hasn't been in
Man.
business since like before your Wonder Wheel was built.
I think I'm trying. I don't know the manufacturer, but there's a manufacturer that does do parts for it.
Oh, really?
I think they like you can still get Arrow parts by going through S&S, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's one of the things a lot of people always bring up the case of like, oh, it's hard to get parts for Arrow. I don't think that's true. I think S&S has a huge faction of their business.
There's so many Arrows. I mean, there's getting smaller and smaller, but yeah, like even like Tilt-A-Whirls. You go to like a place called Larson. I'm getting like deep, super nerdy now.
Yeah, Larson International.
Sellner's not around anymore.
The company that owned Tilt-A-Whirl.
Right, exactly. So
yeah, and Dino, I'm sure you'd understand this. As attached to a lot of these attractions that get retired, that the guests are, might have been somebody's first ride, maybe the first, ride that they ever worked, first job, those kind of things. As hard as it is, for the guests and everything to see a ride go, it's even harder for those that work at the park to make that decision.
Oh, I'm still upset about the whip, because that was my favorite ride as a kid.
Yeah.
But, modern safety standards play a part too. So it's kind of tough, and not having a manufacturer versus having support of a manufacturer, I think. And, a lot of times the general public is your main audience, not necessarily the enthusiasts or the historians. So you have to find a nice balance. I mean, I'm talking for other parks. Right. We kind of tend to keep things going way past their prime.
That's one way of putting it.
All right. All right. And the final pick six question, our topic, is changes to Icebreaker at SeaWorld Orlando. They've changed the height requirement, bringing it down from 54 to 48 inches. They replaced comfort collars with lap bars. So, I mean, it's good that, they saw that, there were some issues involved, and, trying to make it a little bit broader range of guests that can experience it. Dino, your thoughts on these changes?
I remember when they raised it, it was 48 and they raised it. I was like, oof, that would be devastating, because ours is at 39 inches. It's actually designed to be 36 inches, but because our G-forces are a little higher, we moved it up to 39. And if one day Vekoma said, hey, sorry, oops, it's 54 now, that would be tough. So I'm glad that they worked with Premier or however they did it and found a way to bring it back down to 48. Because without inversions, and it looks like such an awesome family ride. I mean, family thrill ride, because it's kind of teetering on the edge there, because haven't been on it, but I hear the airtime is sick on it, especially backwards. So yeah, I'm really glad, because they invested all this money in a new coaster, and they're trying to bring more families in, make it accessible to families. So they found a way to do it. I'm really happy that they did.
Yeah, completely agree. I actually did get to ride it. I rode it during IAPA week while I was down there. And I'll tell you that if I had to rate the thrill, with one being, your typical, little kiddie ride, I'm explaining this way too much. One being like a typical oval kiddie ride, and 10 being, Steel Vengeance or Iron Dragon, or not Iron Dragon, Iron Quasi. But it's like a solid 4 or 5. So it's definitely more like in the family ride category. Now I will tell you this: the comfort collars for me don't bother me from a comfort standpoint, but it does make getting into the train so awkward. And I had this problem at Busch Gardens Williamsburg as well. When you're climbing into the train and you're lifting up the comfort collar to try to awkwardly climb under it, at both parks with the same train, 2 different rides, I hit my knee against the decorative fender and like just bashed myself. So I know that's just me and that's like a klutzy thing, but that's kind of a design flaw where you can't control your whole body at once because you're trying to awkwardly get under this collar as you're sitting in the seat. So I think it might actually do a lot for capacity, not just, accommodating guests. Don't you think so? Awesome.
I mean, yeah, the more you can get in and out of in and out without hurting your knees and bashing yourself in, because people are always having knees and they're not looking where they're going.
Yeah.
And, there's enough distractions as it is. So the less to trip on.
Yeah,
the better.
I mean, I agree, but what I was thinking though was like with the comfort collars, you essentially have this soft collar that is forcibly downward. Okay, so it doesn't like wave upward all the way. So you can't like lift it up and climb into it and then put it over yourself like you would an over the shoulder restraint. It's something that wants to be down, although it is soft. So you're trying to hold this thing up because otherwise you're wanting to sit on
Gotcha.
top of it. Okay. So you climb in, and then on top of that, they have this hooking mechanism that is very simple, but it's backward. It's counterintuitive. So everybody has problems with the hooking mechanism that hooks the comfort collar into the strap that goes between your legs. So I think that this will add 30% capacity to that ride. I'm calling it now.
Yeah, I think minimum, 25 to 30%. You're right on with that, Ryan.
Yeah. Great ride, though. I'm excited to ride it again with a lap bar. That's cool.
Would that be 2 credits, Ryan, or
That
1?
would be 2. Different restraint.
No. Really?
Retracking, new paint, and new restraints are all new credits.
New paint. Okay,
yeah, because I haven't ridden on the new paint yet.
I've always been like, it's 1 credit no matter what changes what they do to the thing, over the years. It's 1 credit for me.
Well, okay. Well, I want both of your opinions on this. So in all honesty, I agree. It's pretty much just 1 credit. Even like the same ride, if they move it to a different park, is still 1 credit. But what about something extreme, like with Son of Beast, how they took out the loop? That's a completely different experience. I could see an argument for that being 2 different credits.
I think if they take out a loop or a major section of track, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, anything that's
but I think
like entirely noteworthy. Sometimes they change the banking and stuff. Like some of the wooden coasters at Kings Island are modernized a little bit with, they change the banking so it goes into the tunnel, and that's not a new credit. You take out a loop or something or a hill, that's new credit.
Well, yeah, I mean, you dramatically change the ride, so yeah, you'd have to consider that as a 2nd credit.
And plus, it's sad if like a credit goes away and you can't get it anymore. That makes me sad. Then like you took something away.
But the credit becomes more valuable since it's rare.
I know that's the other end of it, but
I'm trading my credits on the open market.
They're like NFTs.
Exactly.
Good luck with that.
All right. Well, Deno, we really appreciate you taking time to be on the podcast tonight.
Guys, thank you.
Mentioned earlier,
thank you all.
If you have a chance, you're in New York, you definitely have to check out Deno's Wonder Wheel. You won't be disappointed.
Say hello. I'm there every day. We're open.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much, Deno. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Guys, thank you very much. My pleasure.
You'll have to come back on later in the
season
to talk about how things are going.
Okay, awesome. Deal. About those new casinos.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, good night, everybody. We will see you next week. Thanks again, Deno.